Hello, everyone is Bringonthechaos Glizzy for another. What if Naruto had an immortal body? Naruto has been living for very long time. He gotten bored because nothing interesting is happening in this century, so he's starting dating girls from another world. Time for the date. Date. You're really looking forward to this, aren't you? Yes. Well, in that case, Viva la date. An amusing conversation between Taka and Naruto. To date, a Princess Uzumaki. Naruto was not pleased. Not at all. On one hand, he'd averted a catastrophic disaster and made a lonely girl smile. On the other hand, his little sister had done him wrong. Terribly wrong. Horribly wrong. Raidatosker didn't matter to him. The explanation of the spirits and the need to save them didn't matter, and certainly neither did her half-hearted apology. What mattered was that he'd been worried sick. How dare his adorable little sister worry him so? I can't believe you made me think you were in danger. You should have contacted me. What you did was stupid, reckless. And what had his dear, sweet, adorable little sister done when he'd said this? She'd simply scoffed and replied, "Ha, that promise? Did you really think I was serious about that? Onii-chen no baka." So what did he do? What possible punishment could he inflict upon her in recompense for this terrible temerity? Why, this called for nothing less than his ultimate technique. Naruto spank. Ow! Stop it. Stoop. Ow! Kotori wailed as an open palm ruthlessly descended on her bare backside, leaving a welt the color of her crimson hair on her bottom. "I'm sorry, Onii-chan. I won't worry you like that again," she cried, trying and failing to keep her composure before her fellow members of Raidatosker. Yes, this was an utter failure indeed. "Please, I promise." Her whining only made it worse. He seemed to take a sadistic pleasure in her futile struggles. She was still trying to figure out how he'd up and teleported into the ship, much less directly to her side, before she could contact him. Then he promptly proceeded to bend her over his knee and start spanking her like a naughty child. She'd always known her big brother had strange abilities, but just up and appearing like that ... It was ridiculous. So was being spanked like a little girl. "Mo," she whined for what felt like the umpteenth time. "Stop. I promise I'll be good." Naruto glowered. "You promise?" "Yes, I do." And I twitched, his hand pausing in its merciless assault for just a moment. "Oh, you promise, His voice was a silken purr, like a cat about to pounce. And she was the mouse. "Funny thing about that, promises, Yano. You promised never to worry me like that again." Before her eyes, that grin grew. "You broke your promise, my dear little Imuto. And you know what I do to those who break their promises, don't you?" A tiny knot of dread formed in her stomach as his fingers curled into claws. You know, don't you?" "Eep." He sounded like the devil himself. Kotori gulped. She knew that look. That look was nothing good. "Mercy, Onii-chan?" The expression of her adopted brother was decidedly bleak. "Rain-san?" He turned his attention to the newly met analyst. "What do you think?" The faintest of smiles pulled upon the silver-haired analyst's lips. "Bad girl, traitor, guilty it is," he crowed. "Judgment must be delivered." "That's not helping." A few quiet snickers greeted her ears. Kotori felt her flush deepen. "Kanazuki, do something." "Mamph. Mermfif. Mpmurf." Her vice commander groaned around wet rag currently obscuring his mouth. Naruto didn't even glance at the blonde, still feebly trying to inchworm his way across the deck. Considering his body was currently wrapped in rope, it was pointless to say that he failed miserably. Suddenly he grinned, his hand rising to cast poor Kotori's face in shadow once more. "Now then, let us begin round 2. No, I won't be able to sit for a week at this rate." "Itai!" The little redhead squeaked and squealed in his grasp as his hand fell upon her again, desperately trying to wriggle out from underneath that arm pinioning her to his lap and trapping her in this torment. But she couldn't. It was like trying to dislodge an elephant and swim upstream at the same time. Utterly impossible. In the end, she was forced to ride it out. The buildings abandoned and forgotten. Possessions claimed and taken at some point during the night. Humans truly were fickle creatures. They were ugly, selfish, despicable, and cruel. He smiled at the thought. Odd how he didn't consider himself one. The few mortals he did care for barely numbered the fingers of his right hand. Beyond those, he had no significant bonds beyond tying him to this day and age. And yet, he'd actually felt something here yesterday. Something he hadn't felt in a long time. Compassion. Not to say he didn't feel as a normal person did, of course. His capacity for them was simply reduced greatly. Years of living with an immortal goddess in your head tends to make one quite jaded. Centuries of living of watching all the world around him grow old had done more than that. It had broken something in him. For so long, he'd walled himself off from the world. His promise to Kotori the only thing keeping him afloat in an otherwise monotonous existence. He aimed to keep that promise. He would look after her, always, but the bonds of family only went so far. Origami was another strange one. Tiny thread that tethered him to his own humanity. This was different. It was as if, somehow, Taka had reached right into his heart and plucked all the right strings in all the right places. And it hadn't even been intentionally. But now, it couldn't hurt to try and pull a page from his old playbook. Sucking in a deep breath, he called for her. Taka, silence answered him. Then, is it time for our date, son of A? The normally stoic shinobi yelped in surprise as she immediately answered him. But now, it couldn't hurt to try and pull a page from his old playbook. Sucking in a deep breath, he called for her. Taka, silence answered him. Then, is it time for our date, son of A? The normally stoic shinobi yelped in surprise as she immediately answered him. Where did you even come from? You called me, didn't you? There she was standing behind him, that cheeky little devil, grinning like a child in her armor. She'd simply appeared. One moment she hadn't been on his mental radar, the next, she lit up his senses like a solar flare. It wasn't every day that someone just slipped through his guard like that. Something else too. A gleam of concern flashed through his eyes at those words, the corner of his mouth briefly tightening down into an uncertain frown. He hadn't noticed it until now, but there had been no spatial quake, not even an alarm. Well, that was quick. Of course, it was. She chirruped happily, moving to his left side. You called me. Hey, those bright eyes narrowed suddenly, fixing him with a look of white-hot intensity. You never told me what a date was, either. At his stoic silence, she pouted, planting her hands firmly upon her hips. Well, Naruto, it's time for our date. Date, 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 date. All right. Keep your panties on. Sheesh. The ancient blonde sighed, finding himself sucked into her pace. In any case, your clothes stand out too much. Might want to change those. Her cheeks burned brightly. Are you telling me to strip? Here? Oi. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it would be better to in that moment. His hand brushed something in his jacket. Without thinking, he removed it. Naruto's sweat dropped at the autographed photo staring him in the face. Origami Tobiichi in her student uniform. Bloody thing. How and when did she put that in here? He really had to give the stalker girl points. She was sneaky enough to be a kunoichi, that girl. Kagaya hummed. Are we thinking of finally taking an apprentice? Urusai. Baka Usajai. Oh, so this would be better then? He blinked rapidly, drawn from his reverie by Taka's words. What? No. I didn't say. In a dazzling flash of light her armor did just that. Vanishing. Naruto felt a thin trickle of red leak out of his nose. How long had it been since he'd seen a woman naked? Not to mention such a lovely creature. And Taka was just that. Lovely. He'd have been lying if his heart didn't skip a few beats then. Thankfully, the light show didn't last long. Now, in place of her armor, she now wore that very same uniform, complete with a red bow to hold her beautiful violet hair up. Well, then, she beamed, completely unaware of the effect she was having upon him. Let's start our date. Impossibly, Naruto found himself smiling as well. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad after all. Whatever you say. Viva la date. Now, just hang on for a second. What are you eep? Then he grabbed her and flashed. Kotori felt her eye twitch aboard the Fraxinus. Oh, Oni-chan. Yeez? My beloved Emuto, came the smug reply over the earpiece. He must have known what he was doing, the insufferable bastard. Whatever do you need? Oh, he knew what she needed, him to follow orders. He just up and vanished from their screens. The squirrely bastard. Was he doing this on purpose? It certainly felt like it. He wasn't using any of the choices either. What the hell do you think you're doing? Taking Taka on a date. Like I said I would, he answered. I don't need any assistance for this one. Don't worry. Your Oni-chan may be rusty, but he's still got a few moves. I'm not even going to clarify that with a response. You wound me. That's not the point. You can't just go teleporting over half the city like that. The AST will think you're a spirit again. Bah, let him try. She could just picture his scorn. I'm finally having fun after all these years. Might even see Origami-chan again. Oops. Gotta go. Gotta race to win. I'll be turning this off for the time being. Kotori shot out of her chair so fast she felt like she'd been scalded. Don't you die, Yani. The line promptly went dead. Taka was in paradise. In the last 5 minutes alone, she had seen the city from a bird's eye, raced pell-mell across the rooftops, lost a game of tag, and eaten all sorts of delicious treats. And she was having so much fun. She wanted to dance. She wanted to sing. She wanted to do everything. See everything. A small part of her wondered whether this Naruto person was really a spirit like her. He certainly had many strange powers. But the rest was far too busy enjoying this day. This was truly paradise. Ah, and the true paradise. Was this bread? It was glorious. Words alone could not describe it. As she happily munched on her new favorite treat, no longer wondering if it all was some terrible, horrible trap. Oh, is this a date, Naruto? The blonde narrowly fought off a laugh. That's kinako bread, Taka. You eat it, not a date. And besides, this is only the beginning. Taka's head cocked aside as she happily munched on her treat, like a dog listening for a new sound. Why is something so delicious not a date? The blonde spirit chuckled. Well, even if you say that, Sue. What is a date? His only response was to cackle. Then another, delicious aroma reached her nose. Aha, perhaps that was the date he spoke of. She grinned and dashed toward it. Date. Naruto let out a mild strangled noise, which went unnoticed. Shigo. Taka saw the crowd in the next instant. So many people. Where did they all come from? Is this an all-out war? Without waiting for an answer, she raised a finger. A tiny dot of rimmed purple forming over the digit. If that's the case, I'd better attack before the Mecha squad gets a hand closed around hers, stifling the energy into harmless smoke. Yeah, not do that. Naruto hummed. These people aren't here to attack you, and even if they were, blow them away myself. So don't worry, Kay. Taka was just about to open her mouth in protest when she realized something. He was still holding her hand. Her eyes locked on his fingers, staring intently. What was this strange, fuzzy feeling in her chest? It felt warm. She'd never held hands with anyone before. Mama, a young boy called out, drawing her attention in the next instant. Mama, look, I threw the trash away all by myself. She watched intently as the boy's mother came over and rubbed his head, praising him for the good deed. Oh, good job. Ding. A light bulb popped into existence over Toka's head. She wanted to be praised too. Hastily downing the rest of her food, she dashed over to the bin and promptly discarded the trash. Faster than a speeding bullet, she bolted back to Naruto and bowed her head. With her face currently facing the ground, she completely missed the ninja's gobsmacked expression. Naruto's brow shot straight up into his hairline at the sight presented before him. He didn't think it was possible for a ribbon to twitch like that, let alone for someone to possess such vast quantities of sheer mo, but the pleading sounds Taka made were simply too adorable to ignore. Minute by minute, he felt his icy heart melting into a warm, gooey puddle at his feet. Almost against his will, his hand descended to rub her head. All right. She purred like a contented kitten. A short distance away, Tobiichi Origami bit down on her finger hard enough to draw blood. The sharp, salty tang against her tongue was enough to snap her out of her daze, remind her where she was, and what she was looking at. That woman is a spirit. That woman, a spirit. More importantly, that spirit was with Naruto. She told herself she wasn't worried for him. After all, she'd seen firsthand what he was capable of. He could sneeze and knock over a building. No, Origami told herself. She knew the blonde wasn't in danger, but for some strange reason, she didn't like seeing him with another girl. Yet, the longer she looked, the more that feeling grew, until glowering, she drew out her phone and punched in a familiar number. On the other end, she heard a soft click. Placing it to her ear, she began to speak. "This is Master Sergeant Origami Tobiichi, 0613. Bring an observation device around Bing Bong." A cheery voice answered her, rising over the silly tone. "Sorry, this line is no longer in service. Please, try again. Origami-chan." She knew the blonde wasn't in danger, but for some strange reason, she didn't like seeing him with another girl. Yet, the longer she looked, the more that feeling grew, until glowering, she drew out her phone and punched in a familiar number. On the other end, she heard a soft click. Placing it to her ear, she began to speak. "This is Master Sergeant Origami Tobiichi, 0613. Bring an observation device around Bing Bong." A cheery voice answered her, rising over the silly tone. "Sorry, this line is no longer in service. Please, try again. Origami-chan." She knew that voice. There was an awful silence as her fingers crushed around the phone, cracking the screen. "Naruto." A few blocks away, a certain blonde chuckled trollishly into a half-clenched fist. "She thought I wouldn't notice. Naive. You still have much to learn, Tobiichi Origami. I have long since mastered the digital age. No phone calls for you. Coo. You're a million years too early to beat me." Okay, I'm starting to sound like Orochimaru. I wonder if she realizes the jammer is short range only. She'd have to get pretty far away if she wanted to contact Oh dear Kami. Taka's stomach just growled. "On there goes my money. Don't look now, but I think your wallet just walked into hell," Kagaya hummed. "And oh, what is this place, Naruto?" He blinked, realizing he'd unconsciously allowed Taka to tug him along. Now, he nearly choked on his own spit. He knew this restaurant. Yamazuki? That ridiculously expensive dinery of finery? How did we get here? Curse you, author. TI's bothering me. I think I'll go in. Blast it, woman. One look in those bright eyes told him she wouldn't be dissuaded by anything less than physical violence. Something he wasn't willing to resort to. Dejected, he was left with no choice but to follow after the determined spirit. A moment later, Fox sobbing as he went. Poor Gamakun, how I have wronged thee." Now, Naruto had never been one for high society life. If anything, he disdained it as a whole after that Paris incident. Ugh, just thinking about it made him shudder. Nevertheless, even he had to admit that this place was quite posh, almost ridiculously so, but not enough to affront him. With its red carpets, fine tables there was even a bar. "Welcome. Hey, have you seen a girl with purple rain?" The sleepy-looking analyst stared back at him, looking every bit the waitress. Wow. For a moment, just a moment, he found himself sidetracked. Nice outfit. Now what are yo? For our part, we're checking on Princess's dormancy limits. Was that a touch of pink in her face, just now? No. He had to be imagining it. And I'm testing Gamma-kun's limits, he muttered blackly, holding up his significantly smaller wallet. "Kotori was planning on giving you a pair of tickets in case you came here. But I think you upset her. Hehe." He could just picture his little sister seething in Fraxinus. Here, when those very tickets flashed before his vision, they were in his hand in the next instant, secured tightly between his fingers. What came next shocked him greatly. Even Kagaya flushed. Instant glomp, no jutsu, arigato, Rain-san. His arms closed around her, squeezing with all the might of a pro wrestler. "You're the best." "And never mind that." She wriggled out of his grasp, sputtering. "If you're looking for Taka, she's sitting over there." A trembling hand pointed. "Over here, Naruto." Taka waved. "You're late." Chuckling, the last shinobi weaved his way toward her and claimed the seat opposite. "You really are something, you know that?" At her grin, he felt himself melt even further. "Geez, What was this girl doing to him? Why did he want to see her smile so? Until yesterday, he hadn't even considered such a thing. And yet now, he felt like he'd do just about anything to keep that smile in place. It was a little frightening, really. This looks good, but so does this. I wonder which one is the date? Can I take your order? He didn't even have to look at the waitress to know it was Kotori. Oi, you? He narrowly ducked when she tried to sideswipe him with the tray. Oh, there would be a reckoning for that later. If you're having trouble deciding, what about this course? Hi. What about this? Turned out to be a platter of almost every different kind of food.
Taka devoured it all as if she hadn't eaten in weeks. Outrageous. Humans eat such delicious things. This is delicious. It must be a date. Naruto feigned a smile for her sake, but his eyes snapped toward Kotori when she wasn't looking. And what, exactly, are you doing here?
Just giving you the best possible support to make her fall for you. Baka Onii-chan. Era? A giant paddle mysteriously appeared in his hand. Was I just called stupid? Do you want to be spanked again, my dear little Imuto? Anyhow, the real thing starts now, she sputtered. After you leave? Here, head for south of the station. Look, I appreciate it, but I really don't need the help, just do it. Came the huffy reply as she stormed off. Let's begin the date. I get the feeling she's going to be saying that a lot. So, what is a date? Taka asked again. She only received a strained smile. Congratulations. That smile felt very strained now. Very, very strained indeed. You two are the 100,000th visitors to this shopping arcade. Especially for you. Just for today. Everything you eat will be free. Naruto felt his eye twitching dangerously as they were given this news by none other than Bad Marriage, Kawago, another of Kotori's subordinates. He'd both seen and pulled some ridiculous stunts in his day, but this easily broke the top 10. Creating an entire shopping arcade that he'd known wasn't here yesterday? Just how far was his little sister willing to go? Oh, I've never seen that before, Naruto. Oh, and this. And that. Will you slow down? Taka did not slow down. She moved like a purple hurricane across the standings. An eager child, always trying new things, tasting new foods, delighting in life. When was the last time he'd been that happy? He couldn't recall. To see such simple joy, to watch someone bask in the happiness of mere existence. It was heartening. Bit by bit, he felt his irritation at Kotori trickling away, replaced by gentle amusement. He felt calm. For the first time in forever, he'd realized he had just resisted the urge to snap at someone, to reprimand them. Strange. All right, I get it. All right, I get it. He yielded with a sigh, rubbing his forehead. Eat as much as you want. It's all free anyway. Naruto, when he looked back, Taka was gazing up at him imploringly, looking like a kicked puppy. You're not having fun? She asked. Huh? It seems like I've been the only one having fun today, the perplexed murmured, fidgeting before him. And you've just been getting upset. Did I do something wrong? What? His eyes fluttered open and shut in disbelief. No, of course not. What are you talking about? I've been having a great time. And it was true, he had. His irritation lay not with Taka but with himself. Irate that he'd denied himself the simple pleasure of being happy for so long, that he'd forgotten how. And she thought he was angry with her? Ridiculous. Oi, the whiskered warrior sighed, taking her hand in his. I'm not angry. Really? She was looking most intently at them, their intertwined hands. Really? He gave her palm a soft squeeze. Look, I'm sorry. I just had other things on my mind. Those bright, innocent eyes lit with a glimmer of hope. So, you're having fun too? Of course I am. Really? Truly? Really? His mouth alighted on the knuckles of her hand, raising it to his lips. There isn't anywhere else I'd rather be. Then let's eat together. Her fingers found his again, squeezing gently. Let's get the most we can out of this date. Sure, I'll go wherever you want to go. Promise? He could have sworn he heard the crowd cheer behind them. Bugger it all, Kotori. But he wasn't about to break his word. I promise. Taka surprised him then. She actually giggled. You sound like a pirate. Avasti, lass. He grinned, baring his fangs. You'll walk the plank for that. She took off with a delighted shriek. You'll have to catch me first. Origami hated chewing her nails. It was an old and peculiar habit one she'd acquired ever since she was a little girl. Unsightly, disgusting, and embarrassing. It was something that always happened whenever she was stressed. And stressed she was. Her anxiety levels were currently through the roof and rapidly approaching the stratosphere. No, now, they were out of the atmosphere altogether, because that accursed spirit had just dragged her Naruto-kun into a love motel. A love motel. More than anything she wanted to race in there and stop them, but she knew from first-hand experience that anything remotely resembling a frontal assault was doomed to failure. The jamming had finally abated enough for her to get an order through. Now, she was merely waiting for confirmation. Origami, what are you doing? Her superior's voice rang through the headset. It's past the time to meet. I'm checking the movements of the target, she murmured, angrily. Send an emergency arming device to point 088107. She wouldn't let him be manipulated like this. Naruto wiped a bead of sweat from his brow as they all but sprinted out the back door of the love motel. Disaster avoided. Taka had, thankfully, lost interest the moment she realized this dream park consisted primarily of lush beds, pillows, and blankets. From there, it had been almost painfully easy to steer the wayward spirit onto more interesting things. The temptation had been there, of course, but he simply wasn't that kind of person. He never had been, and never would be. Never the sort to willingly take advantage. This claw game, however, well, he supposed exceptions could be made. After all, Taka wanted that stuffed chicken so very badly. And since he sucked horribly at crane games, magnet release. A subtle flick of his fingertips activated one of the many bloodlines Kagaya had given him over the centuries. After all, when the mother of all chakra dwelt within you, you picked up a few things. Being an immortal god never had more perks than it did now. That simple, innocuous motion forced the stuffed creature to cling to the claw as though it were made of metal itself at the exact moment it made contact. Another motion made it drop just as it reached the opening. Yes, it was blatantly cheating. But God mode was fun sometimes. Kagaya scoffed. You just enjoy seeing that poor girl smile. And it was true. He did. Oh, it dropped. She beamed like a kid at Christmas when he presented it to her. For you, Melody. Her arms closed around it and squeezed tight. Where are we going next? He gave her an odd look. She knew that look. Impossible as it was, she recognized it from this afternoon. It was the same look he'd given her right before. Come with me. Meep. She barely managed the squeak before he grabbed her and flashed again. Shards of sharpened evening sunlight shattered Taka's vision, blinding her to all else. By the time her vision finally cleared, she found herself alone on a hill, gazing out into the city. The sun coated the world in shades of autumn red and orange, as if the entire city were bleeding the color of blood. Where had that thought come from? It frightened her. Oh, she glanced about frantically. Where did you? This is my favorite spot, came the answering murmur. She saw him then, alighting quietly on a rail beside her, a tiger, ready to pounce. You can see the whole city from here. You're on top of the world. Nothing can touch you. He was right, Taka decided. You really could see the city from here. She saw it for what it was now, not something to fear, but something to admire. It was beautiful. Unbidden, her gaze swung away from the cityscape below and locked onto the one who had brought her here. Naruto blinked. What? Is there something on my face? Taka watched him intently, considering for a long moment who what he really was. No, she decided. She didn't think Naruto was human. He always referred to those people as them and never us. He had strange powers. He was kind, gentle, always honest with her. Taka watched him intently, considering for a long moment who what he really was. No, she decided. She didn't think Naruto was human. He always referred to those people as them and never us. He had strange powers. He was kind, gentle, always honest with her, even if she couldn't. Oh, well, it was nice to dream of it. His smile flashed in the fading light. I'm glad. It's a shame the dream park was so boring though. Her partner suddenly looked very pale to her eyes. Squeamish. Even. Just forget about that. He hopped off the rail to stand beside her, and Taka found herself instinctively scooting closer to him. I'll forget about it just 'cause you said so, she chirped happily, leaning into him. So, just what is a date, anyway? Her inquisitive eyes sought his. I couldn't figure it out, and I kept asking you, but you wouldn't tell me. Wait, a horrible thought occurred to her. Do you even know? Naruto coughed into his fist. Well, a date is when a boy and a girl spend time together. Like today. Oh, of course. It made perfect sense. Is this a date, then? She looked at him with wide, adorable eyes. Naruto was almost blinded by the cute. Blinded. Yes, it is. Her squeal was possibly the most soul-wrenchingly sweet thing he'd ever heard. Then we had a wonderful date today. We did, didn't we? Without thinking, she laid her head against his shoulder. Naruto stiffened, but he didn't push her away. Dates are so nice, she sighed happily. Taka,